Hello and welcome to All 32. My name is Arabia, and here we talk all things football. It is Wednesday, so you know what that means. I'm here with my co host, Champ Bailey. How are you, Mr. Bailey?
I'm good. I'm good. Considering, my dogs lost, but my Broncos did win. My Commanders lost. So it's been an up and down weekend, but we finished strong last night with a good win for my Broncos.
Definitely did, as expected. I don't know what the odds were in that game, but whoever bet on the Bengals, you are a betting somebody. You bet. Your bet was
It, it
crazy.
was
So I don't
it
know
was
why you did
ugly.
that. It was ugly. So
Yeah.
being that today is October 1st, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I know a lot of you kind of have an idea that I was diagnosed with breast cancer almost a year ago. It hasn't been a full year yet, but this last year has been insane with surgeries and treatment and doctor's appointments and just all this stuff. So when I'm on the show and I say like, "Oh, I'm happy to be here," I really am happy to be here, not just like on YouTube, but I'm like happy to be alive. Um, and it just kind of totally changed my perspective. So if you or anyone that you know, you have any losses or struggles with breast cancer, my heart goes out to you. And like, get checked, check yourself. I checked myself.
Yes.
A doctor
Yeah.
did not catch it. I caught it myself. So make sure you're going to the
Yeah.
doctor and make sure you're also taking care of your body and getting checked. Um,
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Another thing, I know most of our audience is male, but I got these. So this is the NFC North
What?
hand with the Lions, Packers,
Okay.
Vikings,
Okay.
and Bears. And this is the
Okay.
AFC North hand, the Browns,
Okay.
Bengals. Yeah, so
Okay.
new
So you going
snap.
4 weeks straight? What are we doing?
Yeah, we're
What,
going
what, what
4 weeks
we
straight. So last year was
Okay.
generic football, and then next
Okay.
week will be NFC East and AFC. Next month will be NFC East and AFC East. So
Wow,
yes.
that's actually kind of nice. Who did that? First
So
of all.
I know the ladies are called Bossy Claws. They're the two sisters in the Baltimore area who own their own nail shops. So shout out to Bossy
Okay,
Claws.
perfect.
Yes.
Oh yeah, big shout out.
Yes. All right, let's go to our first segment, 1v1. The Broncos travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Now, this matchup to me is one of the more anticipated matchups of the week or of the season. So we have PS2 versus AJ Brown. Champ Bailey, what do you think about this 1v1 matchup?
Well, I think it's going to be challenging for AJ Brown, and the reason I say that is because he typically stands outside the numbers a lot, and that's where PS2 thrives. I feel like when you just get in a basic formation and don't move around, he will he'll eat you apart because he's one of those guys. His technique is great. His focus is great, but at the same time, like he's a great tackler. So anything you catch on him, he getting you down. So I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna move AJ around, but he better hope he does and has some little wrinkles in there that PS2 ain't aware of or hasn't shown or hasn't seen this year. But ultimately, I expect PS2 to do what he does. And, if you watch the Bengals game, we all knew he was going to match up with Jamar Chase. But I think what Vance Joseph is really getting good at is moving him around, you know, because every team wants to know where he is. You can't, and when you play, guys like AJ Brown and we all know who his quarterback is, he's gonna take some chances at his former teammate. But at the same time, like they're not gonna just be stupid about it. They gotta find a way to do it. So, ultimately I expect PS2 to do what he does, and handle the business.
Yeah. Some matchups in the NFL are a little bit more tense, and there's just kind of like this
Yeah.
intensity, not through like respect, but like they actually don't like each other. And I think one of them is like the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore one that dates back for a few years now. But this one, I don't think is that. I think both individuals have an immense amount of respect for the other. They've gone publicly
Absolutely.
to say, like, PS2 said that AJ Brown is in his top five receivers. He said it was Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, then he said AJ Brown, and then he said Amon-Ra St. Brown. But he just talked about how good of a receiver he is. And of course, same with AJ Brown, saying that PS2 was one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So I think they have a lot of respect for each other. But at the end of the day, when they line it up, they're going to be going at each other, and I'm excited to see. Another thing,
Yeah,
AJ,
it's a rare matchup.
it
It's a
is a
rare
rare
matchup.
matchup. Absolutely. AJ Brown has been feeling frustrated with the Eagles for a while now. Like even after they won the Super Bowl, he was like, it's not what I expected. It's he's on the sideline reading
What did he
books, and
expect?
I think so, maybe there's this idea of when you work so hard for something that when you get
Mhm.
there, it'll be like solve all your problems, or like think about it like with money, right? Like if you don't have any money and you finally get it, and you have this idea in your mind of what it means to get it, but when you get there it's like, oh, this isn't what I expected. Like, maybe he just is it wasn't what he expected it to be. And
So what does he complain about? Or like, what is his direct complaint?
I think he's frustrated with the target share, and I think he's frustrated with
Okay.
his involvement. And on one hand, he's a high caliber receiver, and a high caliber
Yeah.
receiver like that, I think, does want to be more involved in the team's
Yeah.
success and be more
Yeah.
involved in the offense. So that's understandable. But on the other hand, football is such a team sport. You guys just won the Super Bowl, undefeated so far this season. And not that he's more concerned with his individual accolades, but I think he just wants more involvement. And so he takes publicly to social media and posts all these kind of ominous quotes and this and that, just to be like, I'm not as involved as I want to be. So I think he wants more involvement in an offense that's really good. So they don't necessarily need to target him and force feed him
Yeah.
every game.
Yeah. So ultimately, he is worried about his personal stats, and I'm not gonna say there's anything wrong with it. It's just a certain way you go about it and how you communicate that to your powers that be, the coaches, when whoever's making those decisions. But you're right. He has a lot to be happy about. Like you say, you're undefeated, just won a Super Bowl, and ultimately, what we play the game for, you got paid. Like, I don't care what anybody says. This is still your career. It's a job. You're being compensated very well. So I think he needs to communicate it better, and ask for these things in the off season. Like I think a lot of these conversations usually start in the off season. How coaches go about preparing to play players, who's on the roster. I think it starts in the off season. If he's not crying about it then I don't want to hear it during the season.
Right.
Like, if you want to line up in the slot more, yeah, say something in the off season. Maybe he was. I don't know. But I'm going to guess he hasn't talked about it a lot in the off season. Maybe he's just doing his job. And of course, when you're in a controlled environment like practice, you're going to get your targets. But in a game, there's only one mission, and that's winning. And as long as they're doing that, they're not going to really do anything out of the ordinary for him that's going to potentially cause a loss. Now, he was big in that Rams comeback, right?
Yes.
So I know what he's capable of. So there's some understanding behind that. And I'm not stupid. Like, I would love to see him get used more. But at the same time, they're undefeated.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to cry too hard about it.
Yeah, and he sometimes he does this weird thing where he's like, someone in the media will ask him about his comments and making comments about whatever, however he feels, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm just joking," or like, "I like to rile people up and get people started," like that kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't think you are joking. I think even if you are joking, I think there's a little truth behind it.
Ah, man.
And
Yeah,
also,
that's the thing about social media. Like, everybody, you can say something, write it out. I mean, and then all of a sudden it's a joke based off how people react.
yeah,
So
not a joke.
why say it then? Why,
Not
why
even say
nobody's
it.
laughing?
Yeah, why even
Nobody's
create
laughing.
that dissension in the locker room? Like that's not a thing you would want to joke about, because then it kind of makes you look at Jalen Hurts or the offensive coordinator or the head coach. Like it just has so many other people involved in that joke that it's like a weird thing to joke about
Yeah.
to me.
The thing is, when guys are in their prime like he is, you tend to forget like how important these relationships are. And when you start rubbing people the wrong way, it'll come back to haunt you. It could cut your career shorter than it should be,
Yeah,
because a lot of this is relationship based. I
yeah,
mean, this is how a lot of coaches hang around. It's how a lot of players hang around.
yeah.
Like, they just have good relationships. They're not a cancer in the locker room. It's one of those things. Like, you just got to be careful about how you communicate these things.
Definitely do. I also heard someone say that AJ Brown would rather be a really good receiver on a bad team versus a good receiver on a good team so that he can be
Sounds
utilized
like
more.
it.
So I think there's some truth to that. But hopefully they iron everything out. They can get things straightened out so that there's no tense, nothing tense in the locker room moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so let's go to our next section, Rookie Watch. Jaxson Dart led the New York Giants to a victory over the Chargers 21-18 in their second home game of the season. Champ, the Giants get Russell Wilson this offseason. They draft Jaxson Dart. They start the veteran. And, already so far in the season, they put Jaxson Dart in. What do you think about this rookie? What do you think about the decision to put him in? Talk to me about this Giants Chargers victory.
I think it's the right decision. I'm sure there's some things he's done in practice to kind of win them over and give them some hope and some optimism. I think they needed a shakeup. You could just feel like this franchise has just been in the pits the last few years. And it's unfortunate because, this is the New York Giants. Like, should be the most valuable franchise in the league, but they haven't won lately. So I think, for me and what I see, they still got to protect him. He got to get the ball out quicker. But again, it's about a feeling, right? He's not going to be polished as a quarterback, but he did well enough to get them to a win. Now, is that his leadership? Is that something, how these guys feel about them? Because they played a good Chargers team who has a lot riding on this season, right? They have high expectations for their team. So they're no slouches. They had all their weapons. It's not like they were missing any guys. So for me, this is a huge win for Dart and the confidence going forward. But again, man, this is a week to week season. So I just want to see them keep him upright. I think he was sacked 5 times. He had a great run in the game. So protect himself. Just keep building. But I don't expect them to make any noise. I just think for the franchise, this is something they've been missing since Eli Manning is a franchise quarterback. So hopefully he fills those shoes.
Yeah, and speaking of Giants and franchise quarterbacks, Jaxson Dart was sandwiched between two black quarterbacks. And if you know the Giants, you know that they historically aren't big on black quarterbacks. And so with Russell Wilson starting the season, Jameis Winston, who I'm convinced they signed on accident, is right there behind him. And then Jaxson Dart gets this chance. What a different offense from the beginning of the season with Jaxson Dart and Tyrone Tracy starting with the quarterback and running back positions. And now Scadaboo and Jaxson Dart, I think, are really reviving and refreshing this offense. And if the offense can be good enough to pair with a defense that seems like it's trying to make its way off the paper, because for those first few weeks, it was a paper defense. Like, okay, on paper, these people look really, really great.
Yeah.
They should do well. But they just weren't showing up. And I think they're starting to come to life. So this Giants team over the next few weeks really can revitalize themselves and maybe not be contenders, Super Bowl contenders, but could at least give some people in divisions a hard time.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I honestly think this division is wide open. Like nobody's a guaranteed lock. And now Philly is Philly. You gotta deal with them. But I still think they're beatable. They don't do anything extravagant to me except that damn tush push, But again, they're just consistent. I think they know who they are. So the Giants can make some noise. I mean, I don't know when Jaden Daniels comes back. And we know the Cowboys, they good to let one slip. So it's it could be wide open for them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Do I think the NFC East is wide open? No.
No,
I think it'll be like this will be the first
it's
time in a
Philly,
while.
we
I
know,
think it's
but
Philly. I think it's Philly. And I don't know if I've said this to you, Champ, but I have the Commanders winning like 9 games this season. I don't have them being anywhere close to sort of what they were last year. I think last year they
all
did
right.
benefit from an easier schedule, and we talk about what that means to actual athletes, but an easier schedule. And this year playing the NFC North and the AFC West, both of which are really good divisions, and they have some struggles on defense. And Joe Witt Jr. was able to turn water into wine last year and had a defense that nobody really believed in, that nobody was really checking for, able to at least keep them in games and really compete in the postseason against a Lions offense that was really explosive all season. But I don't have that happening. And then the Giants, I don't. Cowboys look really
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I will.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
Cowboys look
the
really good.
I mean, yeah, but it's just winning. It's like Dak Prescott is balling. Like to me, he's. But I've never been down on Dak. It was just always everything coming together
Right.
for that team, and
Yeah.
it just never has. So they can get clicking. I just don't feel like their defense is good enough to do anything.
Yeah, I can completely see that. And for all that football we watched Sunday night for it to result in a tie. And granted, I don't
I
wouldn't
know.
want it to continue on for double overtime and triple overtime, but my God, 40-40 at the end of all that football, I was like, okay, we don't even have a winner, but it was still a good game. Let's go to our hot topic. So, there have been several significant injuries this season, and it's very early. I think this was the record amount of starting quarterbacks who were out due to injury ever in NFL history. And the latest ones, of course, being Malik Neighbors. And then, we saw Monday Night Football with Tyreek Hill being carted off the field in that Miami
Yeah.
Jets game. So, what do you make of this? Some of this, I think, can be attributed to the very popular turf versus grass argument. Some of it is
Yeah.
not attributed to
I've been
that.
hearing that.
Yeah, but so let's just talk about that first. How do you feel about turf versus grass? I know a lot of these guys practice on grass, but then they play on the turf. Like, do you have an opinion on what the NFL should do?
I don't know, man. I prefer grass all day. But here's what's crazy. Friday night, my son, 15, playing high school football, our first game on grass. And he's like, man, I don't like this grass. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I just turn around and say, man, I love the grass
Yeah.
because it's softer on you, on your feet, doesn't get hot. Like it's softer when you fall. Like there's many, many reasons to love grass. But he was just talking about, nah, because you can slip. It's the inconsistency of the footing. So, so there's good and bad about both. It's just, from an injury standpoint, we all know when they really start putting this artificial grass in. We saw Michael Vick get hurt in a certain way, and his foot got stuck in the ground, and other guys getting hurt like that. I got hurt like that in Indy, hurt my foot, got stuck in the ground, and so I don't know, but I understand the low maintenance of it, right?
Yeah.
And so there's to me, if we can all have grass, that'd be great. But it sounds like it would have to be in a covered in a dome or something.
Yeah.
Because I think the last thing you want is to everybody's getting domes anyway. So it's like, yes, there's a way to have grass and have it inside in a dome. Who has grass in a dome right now? Is it the Texans or Arizona? Maybe somebody has it. They slide it in and slide it right out. But
Hmm.
I prefer grass. I don't know what the league should do. I really don't. I don't know what the perfect answer is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be pros and cons to both.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when the Josh Harris group took over the Commanders, one of the first things they did when they got there was change out the practice field from turf to grass. And I think the players really appreciated that. And there are some ex NFL players who are calling on social media for the NFL to have a more concerted effort to have grass instead of turf. But again, not all of the injuries are due to field conditions. Some of them are non
That's
contact
true.
injuries. Some of them, are contact injuries and don't have to do with the turf that they're playing on.
Now Tyreek Hill was playing on grass.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they
Yeah.
went Miami.
They were. Man. And okay, so
So,
man, that injury I think it looked more gruesome than the diagnosis ended up being, but still looked really,
well,
really
he tore
bad.
all his ligaments.
He
So,
he did. I think people were talking about it was a clean break, like his bone just broke sort of
okay.
thing.
It
But
looked like a dislocation because of the way it was turned.
yeah, it looked really, really
Yeah,
horrible. But
it was bad regardless.
so
Jesus.
I really like injuries are the worst part of the game, not just for people's fantasy teams or because we don't get to see the best players play, but like, my son's father being in his 10th year in the NFL and seeing him 2 years ago dealing with injury, his first like real injury of his entire career.
Hmm.
Like, if you mentally are already not in a place to deal with that or have support around you, like, thankfully, he's mentally and physically like a strong person. So it didn't really get to him. He got himself up and active. But, like, just seeing the way that that could really affect a person, a human being playing the game is
Yeah.
like, I would hate to see it. So Tyreek Hill is getting carted off the field and he's like clapping and waving. What's your take on that? Because my take on it initially was like, he didn't even necessarily look in pain, but adrenaline is pumping and people deal with injury differently. They already had it kind of like banded up a little bit, but he's like, yes, and he's waving and he's clapping. Like, what does that reaction kind of say to you?
I, you know, I, I'm gonna always, not put too much weight on how somebody reacts. Like you said, there's a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline, a lot of reasons you do things a little either out of character or that may be, misconceived. I think for me, he you got to think what this does to him. I mean, so look, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to put too much weight on how he reacted. But what I would assume how he feels right now, you got to think about how he plays the game. His game is built on speed, explosiveness, and now he's just tore all the ligaments in his knee. Like, there's no way a 32-year-old, which he will be at the time he tries to come back, will be the same. It's just impossible to be the same. Now, I'm not gonna say he can't get back a lot of that because most of his speed comes from other things outside of his knee. It's just, does he get that strength back to cut and stop on a dime like we've all seen him do over the years? I'm hoping for it because I mean this dude is one of the most dynamic receivers since he came in the game. And I just got to imagine he's thinking about what it's going to take to get that back.
Yeah.
And it's got to be taking a toll on him at this point.
Yeah. You're the perfect person to talk to about this because we spoke in January about when players are getting older or dealing with injury, what are some ways that they can change their game to still be productive? And if Tyreek Hill does come back and his speed isn't the same, can't he, I guess, like put other tools in his tool belt to use to still be productive, but just like in a different way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things he could do. One, be a good guy in the locker room, right? Be a leader. Be a mentor. Those are things, that teams want to keep around. Because most football teams are made up of a bunch of young guys. So having that leadership would be valuable. But, I think from a player and playing standpoint, it's just really get his body back right. Right. I think he's been very good at taking care of himself, and staying in top shape. That's going to enable him to get back even faster. So the foundation of what he set will give him I guess, a good foundation to bounce back. So I expect him to try to make a comeback. I think great players like him. I mean, we saw Kobe do it. We saw plenty of guys do it later in their career. They just overcome some excruciating injury and then make it look like they never got hurt.
Yeah.
you know, so I expect that from him. I expect him to just really dial in. But your production is what's going to keep you employed.
Hmm.
But what can get you unemployed is when you lack all those other things that people look for, the leadership and,
Yeah.
the mentorship that he could bring to a locker room.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. I'm wishing for a speedy, full recovery for Tyreek Hill. Let's go to our next segment, predictions. The Texans take on the Ravens, and it's interesting because in the past, I would say that this is a playoff preview. But today, I'm not saying that.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that at all. And we already talked about what's early. Is it still early? Yes, for both of these teams, it is still early. But just looking at the way that both of these teams are playing, I don't see this being the playoff matchup that I maybe would have predicted it to be in the offseason. So what are your thoughts on this Texans-Ravens game?
Well, and what's the status of Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
Right? Like I think if he plays, I would be inclined to pick the Ravens to win this game. But if he does not, it's the Texans to lose. Like they got their first win. Was that their first
It
one?
was their first win. Yep.
Damn. I mean, you get your first win. It's time to start stacking them. And I think I always go back to what teams expect from their team going into the season. The Texans expect to be in the playoffs. So this is a playoff built team in the Ravens. With or without Lamar Jackson, they feel like they should win this game. But I wouldn't feel like they're going to win it with Lamar Jackson. So this is theirs to lose if Lamar doesn't play. So I got the Texans in this one.
I'm bringing the Ravens up on charges for fraud. And they claim they're like the AFC Cowboys, where every year they claim to get so much better in the offseason. And every year it's their year. And every year they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. And every year in the recent past, they don't. And I'm tired of believing in them and betting on them and all this stuff, and they just don't come through. Now, can we have a conversation about John Harbaugh? A difficult conversation, because in the past, when Greg Roman was offensive coordinator, Ravens fans hated Greg Roman, wanted him out of the building. Get rid of Greg Roman. He's holding Lamar Jackson in this offense back. Now he's somewhere else, I think, doing a great job. And then now we have Todd Monken, who makes extremely questionable decisions, especially in big games, playoff games and regular season games. And John Harbaugh is a consistent in that equation. Now, am I calling for him to be fired? No. But I do think we do need to have a conversation about what needs to change in Baltimore. I don't think it's talent on the field. I don't. I think between offense, defense, special teams, the talent is there that they at least need to be able to make it in these big moments. Maybe it's a scheme issue. Maybe it's a coordinator issue. Maybe it is a head coach issue. I'm not sure, but what needs to change for Baltimore for them to be more consistent in these bigger moments?
I think it's the players. I don't. I'm always gonna look at the players, and they have too many veterans. I mean, you gotta start running back. He's a vet. Quarterback, very experienced. I mean, defense, a lot of experienced players. It's on them. They gotta execute. You can't have Derrick Henry fumbling first 3 games. You can't. Though those things can't happen. And I think, we can all try to point at the coach. We know we've seen these coaches do well, in certain situations. But I do see Lamar Jackson taking sacks when he shouldn't. So it's all about, to me, it's all about the players' production. Can they probably call better plays? Maybe. I don't know. But these guys are savvy enough and have enough experience to know when things aren't good for them. So those conversations are being had. All the concerns and about play calling or anything, I'm sure they're being discussed within their meetings. Now it's up to these players to figure out what's going to work for them, give them the best chance to win. You know, I don't know many coaches that don't rely on feedback from players. I gotta assume they haven't had the success without talking to their players about what they like and don't like. So I'm always gonna put it on them because when they win, I'm gonna give them the credit.
Yeah, there are certain teams that I don't look at the players, and that I don't look at the players, and I do look at the coaches, like the Jets. The Jets have been losing for such a long time that I don't think that if you fire Aaron Glenn, that the team is magically going to start winning games. Or kind of like even the Dolphins, sorta. I think like there's a problem maybe there with coaching and culture. But the reason why I say that for the Ravens is because there are times in games, and we've seen it last season before that, and this season, where they don't go with whoever has the hot hand, and they don't go with what they're really good at. And instead they try to like outsmart their opponent.
I'm
and
with you.
and it's like in those moments, don't do that. Stick to what you're good at and make them stop you. And I've seen that from them so many times, coupled with players making mistakes, these veteran players making mistakes. So both are true, but the Ravens in particular, I'm looking at play calling, because play calling, I think, has been a direct factor in them losing some of these bigger games.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. But oh man, I have the Ravens winning this game. Even if Cooper Rush comes in, I do have the Ravens winning this game. But this might be the last week that I will bet on the Ravens. And and claim that they're going to win a
Well,
game.
you can't arrest them for fraud yet,
Yeah,
so
yeah, we're under investigation. The Ravens are under
okay, there we
investigation for
go. There
fraud.
we
All
go.
right, we haven't made any arrests yet. Next game is Broncos Eagles. Broncos. Oh, let's get into focus. Broncos coming off of this Monday Night Football win versus the Bengals. Now they take on the Eagles. We talked about the 1v1 matchup, but man, I'm really excited to see all of Denver's defense against this Eagles offense and vice versa. Kind of excited to see what Bo Nix has in store for this Eagles defense. But what do you think about this game?
Well, the Broncos ran the ball very well against the Bengals, right?
Yep.
But I feel like that was predicated off the opportunities that they got because the defense played so well and, they were converting. But I know the Eagles got to drop one sooner or later. I thought Tampa would do it. So without a loss on their record, I'm gonna say my Broncos are gonna take care of business. Now, I think the Broncos are starting to. It's kind of hard to measure how well they played against a team like the Bengals because they don't have Joe Burrow, so they were limited in their explosiveness. But at the same time, man, it's still hard to win these games. So I'm gonna say they're gonna build off this because it's been a little disappointing the first couple weeks. I think this could propel them to, a nice little run here, in the middle part of the season.
Champ, let me tell you something. We did a prediction segment a couple weeks ago when the Eagles played the Rams, and I predicted the Rams
Yeah,
were going to win, and you were
yeah,
like, "I think you're just trying to predict their first win." And while I didn't think about that, that might have been true. That might be true because then the following week I predicted the Bucks were going to win. But I also thought those were two teams that had the unique opportunity of actually being able to beat the Eagles.
yeah.
Um, this week I'm not doing it again. My money's on the Eagles because they have proved
Okay.
me wrong 2 weeks in a
Huh?
row between the
Well, it's my
Rams and the
turn.
Bucks, and now it's your turn. All right, now it's your turn. So I'm going Eagles, fly Eagles, fly. But I think that either way, it'll be a really, really good game.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I agree. Hey, what time are they playing?
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock
Okay,
Eastern
good.
time on Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 10 a.m. game
Oh
or 11
man.
a.m. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for the Broncos.
Yeah.
I used to love those games though.
Yeah, I actually am envious of the West Coast like time zone when it comes to games because things are just so late for us over here. Our Monday night games and our Sunday night games,
Yeah,
and we just have kid, I have a kid, I have a 6 year old, and it's just a lot with the
yeah,
timing. But it is what it is. Next
yeah,
game is Bucks Seahawks. A really good game, I think. The Seahawks are on a roll. That defense looks really, really good. Offense looks good. They do need to work on that run game. And the Bucks are coming off of a sort of heartbreaking loss to,
yeah,
a good team. But
yeah.
what do you think about this with this game, champ?
They're a good team. I like Tampa. I got them winning the NFC South. I mean, not a lot of competition there, but at the same time, man, they're built very well. So I got the Bucks. I don't. I'm not sold on Sam Donald, but at the same time, he's been playing well.
Yeah.
So it's one of those they have a chance to beat them, but Bucks they can't drop two in a row.
Yeah. Just to be different, I'm going to say Seahawks. And, I try to find ways to disagree with you when I can, champ, because we just agree on so many things. So I'm going to just say Seahawks. They are a sneaky team year after year. Defense looks really, really good. Where are they? Oh, they're in Seattle. They're in Seattle. They might
Yeah,
have some sort of like home advantage in that regard when it comes to, not having to travel and referees and things like that. The Bucks do seem to be not banged up, but they just always seem to have some sort of injury struggle. Baker Mayfield is good for another goal line interception, but I'm gonna be different and I'm gonna go Seahawks on this one.
all right. Well, there it is. We'll have this discussion next week about how right I was.
Let's go to our next segment, Champs Picks.
Every time I get this opportunity to bring up something that I want to talk about, it's usually about the game but this is more personal because when I was a rookie and I got to Washington in 1999, you got to think this is one of those story franchises. I was playing with Darryl Green, but one guy that always took care of me that I don't feel like gets the credit he deserves is Brian Mitchell.
Mm.
So we all know him as B Mitch, right? He taught me how to catch punts. He would take me out. Like, he just treated me like I was one of his. And I don't think people know this. Like, there is nobody in the history of the NFL that has returned more punts or kickoffs in the game. Like, he is by far a pro's pro. So I just want to say people need to take notice about the all-time greats and start thinking about guys like that and the guys that set the bar high. I was only lucky enough to play with him for 1 year. But when he left, he went to Philly and New York and stayed right in the division so he could show them why they should have never let him go. And he gave us hell. And I didn't like playing against him. I mean, I didn't really have to deal with him a lot, but, because I wasn't playing a lot of special teams. But when he was in Washington with me, he took care of me. He was a pro's pro. And I just want to say thanks to him, for one. I'm sure you're familiar with who he is.
Oh, yes.
But I think everybody else need to take notice. B. Mitch is one of the all-time greats.
Absolutely. He is one of your favorite players, favorite player. And he has his own podcast now with the Commanders, him, JP Finley. It's a really great show.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a story. I was in New Orleans, actually flying to New Orleans to cover the Super Bowl in February. And, I'm sitting in the front of the plane and someone sits next to me. And for the most part, I mind my business. But, I just happened to look
Yeah.
over and I'm like, is that Brian? Is that B Mitch? And, we start to have a conversation and he's just so cool. We're talking about golf courses in the area because he's like a big golf guy, loves golf. And we're talking about golf courses that's near my house because I live on a golf course. And he's talking about he's going to do some golf things when he gets to New Orleans and just all this stuff. Super nice. And then I see him every day on Radio Row, always just so nice and welcoming and warm. And I only have positive things to say about him. And so, yes,
Yeah.
shout out to B. Mitch and check out his podcast if you have a chance. Some really great information going on there, really great takes. Super knowledgeable guy, obviously. Really value his opinion on all things football. And I think that was a really good champs picks because I also
Yeah.
had a really great experience with him. So I can only imagine what it was like for you actually playing with him and being able to have that experience with him one-on-one. So great
Yeah.
champs
He's
picks.
he's he's definitely one of my guys, man.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our last segment, College Corner. The Georgia Bulldogs take on Kentucky this weekend. Chet, what's going on with the Bulldogs?
We took that L we knew we had to take at some point. I mean, it's hard to win every game, especially in a really deep conference like the SEC. But, I think there's always a silver lining to me, when you have a good football team, which I think Georgia has a really good football team, and you take a loss, and it's really all about how they finish the game. Now, do I wish they could have got the ball back and, push it down the field and try to get a field goal to tie it up or score and, touchdown and win it? Yes, but they let the team run the clock out. But I look at the second half. They gave up no points in the second half. The young quarterback played good. Like, he didn't play great. He played really good. He didn't turn the ball over. We ran the ball very well. So there's things there. I think when I look at this team, I'm just disappointed in the lack of effectiveness in the pass game on defense. Like, we just can't affect the passer enough to say we're an elite defense. So until we get that figured out, it's gonna be hard to see us beating the good teams because quarterback play is very good in college right now. You have to find ways to affect the quarterback without blitzing. And we got to get better at that. Until then, I think we're a good team, but we need to be elite in order to advance in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to be rooting for those Georgia Bulldogs this weekend. Join us tomorrow with Coach George. We're talking about the trenches. And thank you so much to everybody who kind of tuned in last week with Coach George to understand the importance of the trenches. And I know a lot of people, most fans are casual fans, and there's nothing wrong with that. And most casual fans watch the football when they're watching football games. The quarterback has it, and then the receiver has it, and all that kind of stuff. But the trenches really is the game within the game. So if you know, you know. Shout out to everybody who really is sticking with that kind of core, diehard football conversation that Coach George and I have. We'll be here tomorrow to talk about that and Colorado football for College Corner. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.